life, aging, and, well, the fact that it all ends. It's the one thing every single one of us faces, right? That ultimate deadline.
The great universal.
Exactly. But how do we actually deal with that? Our source material for this deep dive, it really tackles this head on, uses this incredibly powerful, almost scary image.
It does. It's based on a teaching, you could call it a sermon, that uses these old verses, Pali verses, and then, well, then it adds this layer of explanation that kind of takes things in a surprising direction.
Okay, interesting. So what's the original teaching called?
The source mentions it as the simile of the mountain verses.
Yep.
The Pali is Pavato
Got it.
And our mission today really is to unpack the message in those verses about, how life just doesn't last and what they initially suggest doing about it.
And then
Explore this other perspective the source brings in, which is tied to a specific teaching from Wat Paknam in Thailand called Vijja Dhammakaya. It offers a very different take on aging and death.
Okay, let's start with that mountain simile then. What's the picture it paints? It sounds intense.
Oh, it is. The verses describe these massive mountains, huge, made of solid rock. The source uses words like vipula and sela, meaning vast, stony.
Okay.
Mountains so big they're literally scraping the sky, reaching Navahayaka.
Wow.
But here's the thing, they aren't just sitting there. The teaching says they're rolling in, rolling from all four directions. Samanta anuparya yukatudisa.
Rolling in, like closing in.
Exactly. Relentlessly closing in and crushing nipotenta everything in their path. Imagine that visual. 4 mountain ranges collapsing inwards on you.
Yeah, that's not subtle. It's active, aggressive even, not just slow decay.
Precisely. And the teaching is very clear. Eva, this is a comparison. This image is aging, jara, and death, maku.
So aging and death are like these crushing mountains.
Yes. It says they overcome adivathanti, living beings, pampino, just like those unstoppable mountains. No escape route shown in that picture.
And who does this apply to? I mean, surely someone gets a pass, a king, a powerful person.
Nope. The source is emphatic on this. Nakinchi parivajeti spares nothing. Savameva vimedati crushes absolutely everything. Everything. And it lists them out, to cover all bases. Kings, kati, Brahmins, the religious scholars, Brahmin, commoners, householders, vests, laborers, serfs, sed, the whole social structure.
The source also mentioned a couple of other groups, maybe less familiar ones.
Right. It includes Kantala, which the source explains as meaning half-caste persons, people of mixed parentage, and Pukus, those who dealt with waste, swept garbage, described as having the lowest standard of living.
So from the absolute top to the absolute bottom.
Exactly the point. Doesn't matter if you're royalty or someone considered an outcast, these mountains of aging and death, they're coming for everyone. No exceptions.
Okay, so if they're unstoppable, crushing forces, can you fight back? Can you raise an army? Use your money. Magic.
According to this teaching, absolutely not. It says there's just no ground, Natatabhumi, for armies when it comes to aging and death. No place for war elephants, Hathana.
No elephant.
No elephants, no chariots, Rafana, no foot soldiers, Patiya. Your military power, useless here. You can't muster your forces against this.
And it wasn't just military might, right? What about buying your way out? Or, like, spells?
Correct. Can't be conquered, Sakajatu, through battle. And the source clarifies, not even Matayutina, which it explains as battle with spells or mystic stuff.
Okay, no magic either.
And not with wealth, Dananava.
No.
So all the usual ways humans try to gain control or security force, money, even appeals to the supernatural. And this teaching says they're all completely ineffective against aging and death.
Which really leads to the big question then. If you can't stop it, what can a wise person actually do?
Exactly. What does the verse suggest for a wise person? Patito poso. Someone who sees what's good for them. Sampasa atamatano.
What's the advice?
The verses conclude that a wise person, a diro, should establish faith. Sati nivese. Put their faith in the Buddha, the Dhamma, and the Sangha. Saka.
So acceptance and faith, that's the path.
That's the path presented in these verses, yes.
Yeah.
Accept the reality. Place your trust in the triple gem.
And what happens if you do that? If you live by the Dhamma in your actions, kayena, speech, vakaya, and mind, udachdasa, what's the result?
The verses say that wise people praise such a person right here in this world, heaven of the pasasanti. Your good conduct gets recognized.
Okay, praise now.
And crucially, after death, pekka, they rejoice in heaven. Saga pamatatiti. So it's a twofold promise. Respect in this life, happiness in the next. That's the outcome offered by following this path of faith and righteous living laid out in the verses.
Right. Okay. Now, you mentioned the source takes a turn here. The sermon part, after presenting these verses,
Yeah.
it starts talking about time passing.
Yes, exactly. It shifts focus slightly.
Yeah.
It really hammers home how days, nights, months, years just flow by.
Yeah.
Constantly, without stopping for even a fraction of a second.
And life just diminishes with it.
All right, life isn't static. It's always changing, always, moving towards decay and ending. Ceaselessly. And the sermon then asks, well, is this just how things are? Is it just natural?
Yeah.
Or is something causing it? Is there an agent behind this relentless process?
So it's questioning the fundamental nature of it. And does the source say this cause is known somewhere?
It makes a very specific claim. It says, yes, at Wat Paknam, this cause is known.
And what is it? Or who?
It identifies an entity called Lord Mara, Fra Yamar in Thai, as mentioned in the source. This Mara is presented as being directly responsible for forcing beings into birth, aging, sickness, and death.
So not just a metaphor for temptation, but an actual force causing the cycle.
That's how this teaching presents it. Mara controls subtle elements, forces beings into this suffering cycle right from birth. Life, in this view, becomes a constant struggle, a battle against Mara.
Okay, wait. So the verses said you couldn't fight aging and death with armies or spells, but this teaching is saying there is a battle and maybe a way to fight Mara.
Exactly. That's the crucial shift. The source introduces Vijja Dhammakaya. The teaching, it says, was discovered by Luang Pu Wat Paknam at Wat Paknam.
Vijja Dhammakaya.
Yes. And this teaching claims to have found the real root cause, in the cause, hetu na hetu, as the source puts it, and importantly, the way to solve it.
How?
By countering Mara's own spiritual power, his Vijja, with a superior spiritual knowledge and practice. It's framed as a kind of spiritual technology to directly tackle the source of suffering.
A spiritual technology. Okay. What's the actual practice then? What do you do in this Vijja Dhammakaya?
The core practice is very internal. It's about finding what the source calls the center of the sphere of Dhamma, Songklang Kong Duan Dham, a specific point inside you.
Inside the body.
Inside what's perceived as the human body, yes. And the absolute key, repeated over and over, is to keep the mind stopped and still, yet leaning, utterly still, right at that center point.
Stillness.
Profound stillness, focused precisely at that internal center. That's the engine of the practice.
And does something happen when you achieve this stillness? Does it lead somewhere?
Yes. The source describes a progression, a journey inwards through layers of reality, often called inner bodies.
Inner bodies.
Yeah. It lists a sequence, starting from the familiar human body, Gai Menat, then moving inward to a celestial body, Gai Tip, then bodies linked to deep meditation states, a form realm Brahma body, Gai Rupa From, and a formless realm Brahma body, Gai Arupa From.
Okay, getting quite subtle there.
Very. And it continues, progressing to the Gai Dam, the Dhammakaya body itself, and then even further through levels associated with enlightenment stages, stream enterer, Fra Soda, once returner, Fra Sakadagami, non-returner, Fra Anagami, all the way to the Arahant body, Gai Fra Arahant.
Wow, that's a detailed map. And for each one, stillness at the center.
That's the key. For each of these inner bodies, the mind has to stop and be still at the center of its specific Dham sphere. It's a systematic deepening moving through these layers.
And doing this internal journey of stillness, that's presented as the real way to connect with the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha, not just conventional faith.
That's exactly the claim in this part of the source. While the verses talked about establishing faith externally, this teaching says stopping the mind at these centers, progressing through these bodies, is the way to truly connect with the essence, the gem, Ratana, of the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha.
So it's an experiential connection.
Right, and this internal practice is what purifies your body, speech, and mind, allowing you to actually fight back against Mara's influence.
Okay, so what's the ultimate prize then? If you engage in this practice, this battle, what's the end goal, according to the source?
The source is quite explicit. The aim is to solve aging, sickness, and death anew. Not just accept them, but solve them, overcome them entirely.
Solve them, meaning?
Reaching a state where there is no aging, no sickness, no death.
That's the goal stated.
That's a radical claim. How is that possible? By defeating Mara's power over you through this Vijja Dhammakaya practice. Liberating yourself completely from his influence and the whole cycle of suffering, Wataka Samsara. The result is described as immense happiness, a victory far beyond even heavenly joy or conventional nirvana. And, the source makes a really strong claim about this whole approach.
What's that?
It basically says that this specific understanding, identifying Mara as the cause, and using Vijja Dhammakaya to fight him and overcome aging, sickness, and death, is unique. Unique to Wat Paknam.
Only Wat Paknam.
That's the claim.
Yeah.
That this knowledge wasn't found elsewhere. And interestingly, it adds that even at Wat Paknam, many people living there didn't know about it for a long time, suggesting it was maybe a core, perhaps hidden or advanced teaching.
That is fascinating. A very specific, internal, almost technical method for total liberation presented alongside that initial universal image of inescapable mortality. Quite the contrast. So let's recap. We started with this incredibly vivid image crushing mountains from all sides representing aging and death coming for everyone. Kings, commoners, everyone. No exceptions.
Utterly inescapable, according to those initial verses.
And the advice given there was basically accept this reality and place your faith in the Buddha, Dhamma, and Sangha. Live virtuously, the reward being praise in this life and a good rebirth, heaven, afterwards.
Right, the conventional path of acceptance and faith. But then we looked at the distinct teaching from Wat Paknam presented in the source.
Which takes a very different approach.
Completely. It identifies a specific entity, Lord Mara, as the active cause of aging, sickness, death, and the whole cycle. Life becomes a spiritual battleground.
And it offers a specific weapon for that battle.
Yes, the practice of Vijja-Dhammakaya, that deep, focused stillness at the center point, progressing through those inner bodies. This is presented as the way to fight Mara directly.
To connect with the true triple gem internally.
Exactly. And ultimately, the goal isn't just a better rebirth, it's to actually solve aging, sickness, and death, to achieve a state beyond them, total liberation, by defeating Mara.
It's really quite something. You have this universal truth of impermanence, the mountains, and then this very specific internal path claiming a way to overcome it completely.
It is a lot to take in.
Yeah.
And it really leaves you with a powerful question to think about, doesn't it? Faced with the fact that life ends, that aging happens. Where do you put your energy? Do you focus on accepting it, cultivating faith and virtue within that understanding like the first part suggests? Or do you investigate a path like the one described here, which claims to offer a direct internal method to fight and potentially achieve a total victory over those very forces?
Definitely something to ponder, a big question to sit with as we wrap up this deep dive.